Matt.
Spence, let's go, buddy. What's up?
Welcome to the Intangible podcast, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excited to have you here. Excited to dive into the intangibles, those little things that you can't see that makes you a better person, a better athlete. So excited to hear what your journeys look like.
Yeah, man. It's been a journey. I like that hat, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I had to pull it out to represent.
Listen, you talk about intangibles. One intangible, I don't know if it's an intangible, but like, dude, you are always like dialed. Your outfits are money. You're not quite like Nate Burleson level, but you're dialed.
It's a receiver, I'm dialed.
I don't think there's anybody like Nate B, but you're always, I would say you're like always on the podium for best dressed. No matter like what the event is, no matter what's going on, you're like a medalist on the podium at all times.
You know why I'm always like that is because
now you're like really in shape and fit, and now you're just like, I just gotta ride. No, I always wanted to wear that outfit.
No. That's a bit of it, but it's because I got scarred early in my career. I remember I got like 2 suits. And I bought like 4 or 5 shirts, and I thought as a rookie that I was going to change my shirt to match my suit. But the guys gave me such a hard time in the locker room about wearing the same suit. So it scarred me. And so now.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I think it's tough, especially when you're like, trying to be an offensive lineman, you're 300 and something pounds. Like it's got to be just you're finding clothes that fit. I know for me at like, whatever, when I played like 6'4", 240, it was like hard. Like if you're 310, like, I can't even imagine. So and not even out of shape, like really strong and fit, but just still like they're not designing clothes for size. What shoe?
Yeah, 17.
Size 17 shoe, right? Like, give me a break. You know what I mean? I can't find 13s. You're at 17. It's ridiculous. Okay, sorry. That's amazing.
No, it's great. That's great. Well, hey man, I mean, you spent some time here in Nashville as a Titan. Yeah. 2011 to what?
So this is actually our 3rd time living here. We moved here right after the Seahawks. Played my last year in Seattle in 2010. Moved here right out of the lockout season. So It was like super abrupt. Like one day I'm in Seattle, literally 24 hours later after a disaster connecting red-eye flight, I'm on the Tennessee Titans, Nashville resident. Got to find a school and a house in about 24 to 48 hours. And in that same 48-hour window, I was allowed, there was like a heat acclimation and like just an acclimation process. I was allowed to be like the quarterback of an NFL team. Yeah. It was just like, whoa.
Like 4 days that you had to sit out, right?
Yeah, something like that. But it was like 4 days of the hardest workouts. The strength coach was this guy, Steve Watterson, and his assistant was Jason Novak. And the workouts, like when you're not on the field, it just turns into like an opportunity to like punish you into the ground. And that's what it was. That's a whole nother story. That was great. So that was abrupt. Then the second time we lived here was during COVID. And that's sort of an amazing story too. We kind of came here in 2020, and then the third time is this time, and so yeah, it's been like 3 different experiences, but this is a special place, and met a lot of great people here.
Yeah, I mean, COVID though. I mean, what brought you back here during COVID?
I mean, so I'm a parent. I've got kids who like sports are important to them, school's important to them. Like everything's like it's all part of it, right? Yeah. And during COVID, everyone handled COVID a little bit differently. I was working at ESPN at the time. We were not allowed to go to the headquarters because it wasn't safe to be inside. So they put us inside a tent on a roof of a building in New York City. So really, we were just inside a small tent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know how I feel about that. That's how it is, right? And so like we were taking a train into Penn Station in New York City to go have it was nuts. It was a crazy time.
I don't think anyone knew what to do back in that time.
Well, I would just say, looking back, I think some people handled it better than others. But at that same time, we're living in Massachusetts. They canceled the high school football season and sent out an email. And the email also said something like, but we understand how important athletics are to teenagers, so we're going to offer yoga, socially distance every Wednesday instead of football. And that's when they lost me. The NFL was playing, college football was playing. A lot of places around the country were playing. Doing it smart, using science, but that one rubbed me the wrong way. So we kind of just said, we're out. And we moved here, and my son actually came here to play football, ended up breaking his arm in like the first 2 weeks that he was here. So he never really got to play football, but we learned a lot of life lessons through it. And And one of those lessons was this is a special place with special people who are who think critically and try to problem solve and try to think about everything, like, how it affects everyone.
Yeah.
And I just appreciated how it was people with all different viewpoints from all different places in the country, really. And then there's a soul to this city also, that people that have grown up here for generations and like know each other and look out for each other and almost parent each other's kids a little bit. It's kind of like, John David, get away from that. It's just like, oh, how old's your son? It's like, oh, that's not my son. It's like, what? Oh yeah, that's my best friend's son. It's just like, oh, shoot, But that's kind of what it was like when I grew up. Like, I knew that I couldn't act foolish around my parents, and I couldn't act foolish around my parents' friends.
Yeah.
And it was just cool. And I sort of appreciated it because parenting can be tough.
It's tough. I mean, you talked about the importance of sports and things like that, and coming from a very strong sports family background, like, take us through a little bit of growing up in Boston, that time, and how does your parents kind of instill some of these things that you've carried over into parenthood?
Yeah, listen, I was born when my parents were teenagers, like in college. My dad played football at Colorado. I was born in Boulder. My dad's actually going into the Colorado Hall of Fame this year.
Let's go, Don.
Which is amazing because the only other person I know going into the Hall of Fame this year is Chris Spencer over at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But no, so then my dad was drafted to the NFL. He went to the New England Patriots. My parents had to look up New England on a map. They were like, New England, it's like that collection of like small states up there. Like, we don't really even know.
That's like me leaving Mississippi, going to Seattle.
No doubt. No doubt. Like, it's a long way away and you don't know anybody or you don't have connections there or whatever. And so anyway, my life experience growing up was my dad played in the NFL, and so did all my friends, their dads. And so people would ask me what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, I'll just probably play in the NFL like my dad, which was so, like, I was clueless. And so my parents literally, like, I feel like every day was like, the NFL stands for not for long. Nobody even makes it. Even if you do make it, the average career is 2.8 years, like school, education. And then even that, like, my parents didn't even let us play organized football. It was like, no, play golf, play basketball, play baseball, play these other sports. And so I did. We all did, me and my brothers. But I mean, football just sort of chose us back. So anyway, I wish I was a great golfer, but like, it didn't happen. But I think through that process, I learned that football wasn't what I think people might think it was. And so this is like an example, like this silly example, but I say this to kids a lot, and I'm coaching high school football now. But one of the things I absolutely hated growing up was certain classes in school, science, foreign language, some of those classes. And I used to literally sit there in those classes being like, what the heck do I need to know this for? I'm not going to be a scientist. I'm not going to ever speak French, German. Like, what are these dumb, like, what am I doing? And then I get to my first team, which was the Green Bay Packers, and there were people more talented than me that didn't make the team, and I made the team. And part of the reason is that when they hand you that big, giant Brett Favre, Andy Reid, Mike Holmgren playbook, it's a foreign language. Who has the study skills to learn the language quick enough to run the plays? And so I went from a guy that was like, I don't want to say anti-school, but like rolling my eyes, to all of a sudden we're in U personnel. We're going red, left, swap, tight, close, Z right, sprint right, G, U corner, half back, flat, on one, ready, break. Like, if you can't say it, you can't run it. And that was me. So looking back, I learned a lot through the school process. Excuse me.
Yeah. So you grew up in this competitive environment.
Sorry.
NFL. No, it's you, again, welcome back to Nashville.
You're not joking.
Yeah, your allergies is kicking up, and it's going into the fall, and so that's being in the South. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So welcome back. You should be familiar with it now, though.
I should be.
You got to go get your shots and stuff.
Someone said that. I was like, okay, I didn't know.
But you grew up in this competitive household. Parents in the NFL. You always wanted to go play in the NFL. Then all of a sudden you're sitting there Did you get drafted? Were you a drafted player?
No, so like I didn't have I had a great high school experience, played every sport. I was probably one of the better kids, but wasn't a dominating player. Had a lot of potential, basically, and go through college. Didn't have a great college experience for a lot of different reasons. Didn't play that great. Didn't go to a bowl game. Didn't get invited to the combine. Sorry, might need an edit button here. Excuse me. Didn't get invited to the combine and really wasn't sure if I was going to get drafted. I had a pro day. One team shows up. I was really discouraged. Luckily, I don't know how, that team drafted me. So I go to the Green Bay Packers and I get drafted, and I'm really kind of surprised. But, what happened the very first day that I showed up in Green Bay is my quarterback coach, Andy Reid, who's now the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. He called me and had a meeting. And it's funny, the name of your podcast is called Intangibles, because that's what our meeting was about. And he was like, listen, and really this like blew my mind because I was not expecting him to say any of this. I thought that was going to be about something totally different. And he said, listen, our quarterback has taken our team to the last 2 Super Bowls. He's won 3 MVPs in a row. He has what people call intangibles. And honestly, I didn't really know what intangibles were. I was kind of like, oh, that was the thing that people say on TV. They're like, oh yeah, the intangibles, quarterback intangibles. And I just was kind of like, yeah, but like, what are they really? Someone define those for me. Yeah. And he was like, listen, tangibles are what they test for at the combine.
Right.
So you're all upset that you didn't go to the combine. They test for tangibles. And he basically was like, that's not what makes Brett Favre special. It's not tangibles, it's intangibles. And he kind of defined for me what they were. He said, listen, while you're here, I want you to study Brett Favre's intangibles. And it's not, and he kind of went into like a deeper dive, but he basically was like, I don't want you to study and learn from his decision-making, his mechanics, like those things, like they're actually not great. That's what I'm working on with him. But what I do want you to study is his leadership style, the way he knows the name of every single person in the building, even though he's the most popular person in the state of Wisconsin. The way he motivates his teammates with a smile on his face, the way he intimidates the opponent without saying a word, the energy that he brings to every situation. It's like all these different things that he was telling me to like take notes on. Hey, this year, if you're here, if you're fortunate enough to be here for the whole year, you're a young quarterback. This is fertile soil. If you're planted, this is what I want you to evaluate, study, notice, and it just was kind of shocking. And so like I leave that meeting and I go into my first offensive meeting and I'm in awe. Like literally, I've got like posters and Sports Illustrated covers of Brett Favre on my wall at home. And now like this dude walks into the room and the very first thing that he does is he stops and he like meets me with eye contact and shakes my hand. He's like, hey, my name's Brett, what's yours? And I'm like, well, dude, I know your name, like, duh. But there was something about the humility that he showed, and, it was just hard worker. It just looks like, it's like all this stuff just sitting next to him, taking notes, like all this stuff. Just like, okay, I'm noticing all this stuff. Now, on the flip side, I've also played with a lot of guys that, came through that room. Green Bay invested in the quarterback position. A lot of guys are first rounders and this and that, like, big names. It wasn't like that. It was just different. And so I just think my antenna was up for, I don't know, like the guys that there was something different. There was something special. Like who's jogging on the field, who's walking on the field, like just all these little things, they add up. And I certainly, because Andy told me to really study it, my antenna was up for that in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because now it all makes sense to me. Been around you for a long time. 2005 when I got to Seattle, and we've spent a lot of time together, not just on the field.
Well, that center quarterback relationship,
very very special. But I was always curious of how does a guy who grew up, spent a lot of his time growing up in Boston, is able to connect with a kid from Mississippi or Georgia And you always had this way about yourself in the locker room that it didn't matter what background, you were able to connect with players, and I always admired it about you. And even it was corny too.
Well, it's corny because like the South, man, like that. You know, I don't know anything about the South. Like when you say the South to me, I used to think of Cincinnati. You know what I mean? Or like going to like Disney World. You know, like I didn't know the South. Like, and it's really the food that I'm a little bit like. Wait, hold on. What? Red beans and rice? What? Crawfish? Etouffee? Like I've never heard of it. Don't know what it is. Don't know how to eat it. You know, but like. No, I think there was an element of. I think there's an element of just seeing the leadership style of certain guys, and the whole thing was just like, we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna get to know each other, and I'm gonna know stuff about you, and I want you to know stuff about me, and you know, we're gonna make people laugh, and we're gonna have fun, and like going back to like my early years in Green Bay, like. Growing up in Boston, like it's a sports town. Like I took a train to high school most of the time. So I kind of grew up in like in the middle of nowhere, but like kind of in a city, like a little bit of both. And kids there, all they do is play sports all the time. Like I can't ice skate. I played hockey. You know what I mean? We played basketball. We played baseball. We made up games. We played football. We played in the street, played in the yard, played like broke glass, broke windows. Like we just all the time doing stuff. And then you get to like, college football, it's like professional amateur sports. Then you get to the pros and it's almost like, you know, school. And then you go out and do school on the field. And then I don't know, I just got to Green Bay and Brett Favre and like that team coming off of another Super Bowl, they reminded me of what it was like to grow up in Boston on a snow day. It's like, yo, let's just go outside and play and have fun. Like, how fun is this? You know, grown men just playing a sport, playing a game. Kind of, it reminded me, like, when I watch the Chiefs play now, I'll see Mahomes throw the ball to Kelsey. Kelsey's running down the field, and then all of a sudden, like, he's about to get tackled, and they'll just lateral it to the running back. Like, that's how it was growing up.
Backyard football.
No doubt. And, like, that was what it was like growing up for me. And, like, when I got to Green Bay, that's just how they were playing football.
Yeah.
They were playing NFL football that way. And so I didn't like get a ton of reps at I got really almost no reps at quarterback that rookie year. I played tight end for a scout team. That's a whole nother thing. But one of the things that I did, and I'm sure I got made fun of for it, is like when Brett would go in the huddle and call, there's 11 guys in the huddle. When Brett would call a play, I'm the fourth string quarterback. So I'm supposed to be 15 yards back, stay out of the way, you know, whatever, behind your coach. And I would go up and I would be the 12th person in the huddle just to listen to how Brett called the play. Because in my playbook, you know, it would say like, okay, we got base, green right, fox 2XY hook on one, ready, break. But then you get in the huddle and hear the way Brett called that same play. It's not like it was in the textbook. You know, it's like, all right, y'all. Hey, Chewy, it says 8, get 6. You know, Earl, come make him feel you now on the play action. Hey, sell run, O-line, this ball's out quick. You know, it's like, oh, shoot. You know, so it's giving them like a little vibe of like how this play's really going. It's almost like a pop pass, you know, where I'm like, well, there's a deep post on this play. And he's just like, nah, hey, listen up, guys. It ain't about the post. We're going to sell run. Ball's out. I'm getting a catch to the tight end. Here we go. And I don't know. It just was like, oh, shoot. And so I'd hear him call the play, and then I'd go watch the play. And then the next play, something else, you know. All right, y'all, this play sucks, you know. But we're going to show him that it sucks anyway. We're going to make it good. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh, he just said that about the head coach's play, you know. But it like, I don't know. Like it made the guys up front anyway feel like, yeah, this place, but you know what? We don't, so we're going to go out and do a good job. You know, it's just like different styles of calling the same thing. And I don't know, I just reminded me of like literally, you know.
Man, I'm getting chills because you're saying these things and I'm picturing our huddle and having you come into the huddle and we know a place up and you come in and you sell this play to us so well that all of a sudden we look up, Sean Alexander got 25 yards off. Like,
yeah.
You know, and like you just had this way about yourself of like just getting guys. And so this all is making sense.
I feel like I'm giving away my secrets here to you now. But, you know, some of it is like selling a play, being a salesman, waving the flag for the play caller, the head coach. Some of it is making a play that's not going to work, finding a way to make it work. Yeah. And like one of Brett Favre's like, I mean, I learned this from him, and now you see guys around the league do it. But like if he knew a play wasn't going to work, this is a little trick. He would purposely go on the hardest hard count he could go on. And if you know how it is in the NFL, if someone jumps, center can snap the ball and everyone just goes deep. It turns into like we're going deep. So like it's
back
like
to backyard football.
Yeah, right. But you also didn't waste a play.
Yeah.
And so Brett was like notorious for that. But no, it's just, like when I heard the name of your podcast about intangibles, like all I can think about is Andy Reid in that first meeting and just what an impact that had on me.
Yeah. Now, so you start to really look at your career over leaving Green Bay. Coach Hongum leaves Green Bay and ends up in Seattle. And then you get a phone call saying, hey, Matt, we want you to come to Seattle. And now you're in a quarterback competition.
Yeah.
Take us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, not at first. Like they handed it over to me, like which I don't think was great. It's really important, I think, to earn the respect of your teammates. And I was following two really awesome guys, John Kitna and Brock Heward, who had been the starting quarterbacks at Seattle the year before. And then they trade away, like I want to say it was like the 5th pick overall. And they get me and Steve Hutchinson, who was like just like a, at the time, a no-name guard from Michigan. And I say no name, but like, I think they in Seattle had their hopes up to get like some like big name quarterback. And so they traded away like the high pick. And I think people were kind of like, okay. Cause I think Hutch was replacing another good player, Pete Kendall, as a first round pick. Yeah. So like there wasn't a lot of excitement when I got there. And I think they were trying to sell it. And so like basically what happened was like, hey, you're the starter. I had thrown 29 passes in my career. And basically like we voted for captains. I allegedly was voted captain. I'm very suspicious of that because I just don't think I earned it. I really don't think I earned it. And so much so, like I get to Seattle and there's like, oh, we got our guy. We finally got our guy. Da, da, da. And I feel like the vibe in the locker room was kind of like, wah, wah. You know what I mean? Like we got the starting holder for the Green Bay Packers. Like really? Like we could have done better. And so near the end of training camp, the team goes out and signs Trent Dilfer, who had just won the Super Bowl as the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. And that's when all of a sudden, like, okay, if you falter, we got a guy we're going to right away. And that's the contrast of what it felt like to be just handed it to all of a sudden now, looking over your shoulder in competition was like new. It was definitely a new scenario there, and it was rough. It was a rough start, really. I mean, for me.
Yeah, and at what point in that competition and looking over your shoulder did you go back to those intangibles that Andy Reid talked about that you brought back to the table?
I wish I could tell you it was quick. It might have been a year.
Yeah.
Trent Dilfer gets there, and he's like, hey, I'm here to be your backup. I'm praying for you. I want you to have a lot of success. And I was like, I'm not falling for that. Dude, I'm from Boston. Like, I'm not falling for that. Like, it's the oldest trick in the book. You're not rooting for me.
I rode the train to school.
You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, literally, you were a free agent. You looked around the league and like, all right, who's the worst quarterback in the NFL whose job I could take probably in a month? Like, that guy, never heard of him. Like, that's why you're here. Like, that was my mindset. And I think I learned a lot of things, some things I had already known, some things I just need to be refreshed on. But I think one of the things I learned from Trent was how to compete in a way that like is freeing, and you can just like do it to your fullest and not have to root against the teammate that you're competing against. And like, so I saw a guy in Trent, and again, it took me like a year to like really believe that he was sincere. Because he's so competitive, and that's one of the things that made him great. It's one of the things that makes all of us great. Like if you do have that competitiveness, but he truly was like competing with himself. Yeah. How can I be the best version of myself? And like if that's instead of like I'm competing against this guy, like this other quarterback, I'm like rooting for him to do bad. Like that's kind of the immaturity that I think I had at the time. And I just didn't know how to do it. Like I was like the stakes were high. And so anyway, I guess I get hurt and Trent becomes the starter and he goes undefeated and then they name him the starter. But I saw the way that he competed in a way. So then he gets hurt, he tears his Achilles and I go back in, I become the starter. And then I think I remain the starter. But I saw how he kind of invested in me and cheered for me while never losing his competitiveness. And I really saw like, you know what, this is good for my mental health in a sense. Like I'm not having to root against my teammate who like my guy I'm working with all the time. And I'm like sort of rooting for him and I'm rooting for me. I'm hoping he does the best and I'm hoping I do the best. And I saw how infectious that was for our team because at every single position group, and I'm sure with like every company out there, like you're competitive within your department. And sometimes like, it's not fair. The job was just handed to somebody else. Like it was handed to me. But like, if you can just take that posture of like, I'm competing with myself, trying to be the best version of myself, it's such a better way to go. And I think like eventually we got that kind of unified in the quarterback room. And we went from being a team that had some, I don't know what kind of issues we had, but there was some broken parts of togetherness on the team. And then we got the quarterback room right. And I feel like it just kind of flowed, not perfectly, you know, but it was better than it ever was. And I kind of learned it the hard way, to be honest. They basically sat me down, learned it from the bench, watched from the bench, but it was almost like an out-of-body experience where seeing the way that his leadership style was, I definitely realized like, shoot, I was reminded like that's the way to go.
You know, it's hearing your story and while we're doing this podcast, Intangibles, is that it sounds like you start to understand what intangibles were later in life. And our goal is that young kids start to hear what intangibles are early in life so that those seeds are planted throughout their high school and college career. So when they do get to a state of being in a corporation or going into the NFL or whatever sport they may be playing, that they have a foundation and know how to get back to those quicker. And so that's why I think about when Andrew Reid had that conversation with you, and then you was like, wait, explain this to me. Mm-hmm. Tell me define what that looked like. That then you start to like go through and then you start to see it play out in real time within that quarterback competition. So it's
and like that's why I love sports so much, is because like those seeds had already been planted and they had already been planted in fertile soil. And they've already been watered. It was almost like Andy was just kind of like the sun at that point. And really what it was like, be a great teammate, you know, like be a great teammate. And like, I think it's actually not that hard to be a great teammate as you're growing up. Like I think everyone understands what that's like, but for some weird reason, like the way we put up quarterbacks on a pedestal and we make them like it's all about them. And when I got to Green Bay, I thought like, oh, it's all about Brett Favre. Like he's the only reason this team's so good. Like, no, it's not true at all. There's many Hall of Fame players on that team. There are many players that aren't going to be in the Hall of Fame that were amazing players on that team. There's people that only Packer fans know about. And then there's people behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And so like, but then to just see how Brett was just such a great teammate while everyone was trying to lift him up and make it all about him, like I think that's what was like so magnified to me. Yeah. But again, I just think that's why sports are such a great thing for kids as they're growing up, and they just kind of like, you know, these life lessons that you're learning and you don't even know you're learning them.
Yeah, and it's also come in play is that awareness. And it sounds like you found your awareness and it turned out to work out for you. So we're now at a segment of our time where we want to do a 2-minute going into halftime.
Let's go. I like that. I love the 2-minute drill.
2-minute drill. I know you're a big 2-minute drill guy.
One quick thing about 2-minute drill. I just want to say this real quick, okay? 2-minute for a quarterback in the second quarter is completely different than 2-minute in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And people just think, oh, it's 2 minutes. Like, no, they're like, they should have two different names almost. Yeah. You know? So anyway, just wanted to say that.
Oh, and that's why we're going to do it on the front end, because it takes the pressure off. Like, there's a lot of pressure going in the fourth quarter where you got the 2 minutes.
2 minutes on the front end, a little more conservative, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I'm going to give you a little couple curveballs here, not too tough.
Great.
All right. Favorite place to play?
Lambeau.
Tell us why.
It's a throwback, you know, like especially old Lambeau. I mean, obviously I love playing in Seattle, like home stadium, but on the road, Lambeau, just an amazing atmosphere. It's almost like a college atmosphere. As you know, like there's two sets of season ticket holders. There's the people that basically are from Milwaukee, and then there's people that are basically from Green Bay. So like they don't take a game for granted. It's a really cool place to play, and I love playing on natural grass also.
All right. Favorite training camp story?
Favorite training camp
and
story.
I'm hoping it's one that I like a lot.
I mean, if it's, I'll just say one that you like. You like when Walter Jones knocked me out after he had too much to drink. We played this game. I was a clown, right? Class clown. I'm like, Walt, swing your hand across my face and I'm going to clap like stage combat and act like you hit me. And, you know, he was a little inebriated and he's got like a bear claw and he didn't miss. And the next thing I know is like the morning and I wake up and yeah, man, I had a black eye. Should have been in concussion protocol. So Walter Jones, I'm going to give him a pass because he did such a great job of blocking for my blind side all those years.
Yes.
Saved me from hits, but ironically, the only hit I got from Walt was when he delivered.
Still one of my top training camp stories.
One of your top, not one of my top.
Is there anyone that's other than that comes to mind?
I mean, I get serious ones. Like I just think the training camps are really an amazing time because people are so nervous to make the team, to stay healthy. There's a lot on the line. And like in my career, you know, one of the things I'm so happy about for football, this isn't 2-minute drill, but basically my faith journey is involved in that. And I do believe that when people's similar to being in the military, but like your life's not on the line, but like you feel like your life's on the line, like people are like, they're willing to be vulnerable and get serious when, you know, a cut down date's coming or injury or whatever. And so training camp was this time where you kind of go away. It's like camp. And I think you grow in a lot of ways, and that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, give us your top moment in college or pro.
My top moment, shoot, man, I think there was a wild card game against the Washington, we now call them the Commanders, where we hadn't won a playoff game since like 1984. And Sean Alexander, I think, was the MVP of the league that year, and he gets hurt, he gets knocked out, and we're trying to win. And it was like, oh, here we go again. And there was one play, it's like that movie Little Giants, one play where I outran a friend of mine, Sean Springs, and Sean Taylor's in the end zone. Like all these guys, I could never outrun them, and I outrun them on 300 jet, quick fly, quick Dino for a touchdown. And it was like, you know, if we do that 10 times, there's no chance it happens more than once. But it was such a cool moment. We won that game, and it just felt like the weight was lifted off of like the team, the city, like everybody for us winning that game. It was a really cool moment.
All right. Well, halftime's over.
Okay. Well, that was quick. Hopefully it ended with a kick, either a field goal or an extra point.
You scored. You scored.
Good.
You did
Appreciate
good.
it.
I mean, it wasn't too tough, right?
Okay, good. No, it was good.
Well, Matt, I think when you start to look back over your career and start to look back at, you know, the things you've learned and being a successful quarterback in this NFL, go on to make Pro Bowls. Now that you're back here in Nashville coaching high school football, you know, how are you taking those experiences and leading a group as an offensive coordinator for the Innsworth Tigers?
More than I thought. You know, when I was a player, I used to sort of like, I don't want to say be cynical, but like with my coaches, it'd be like, oh, he says this again and he's saying that again. You know, we got to walk before we can run, or like all these like sayings that coaches have. And now I find myself when you're coaching, you're really teaching. I find myself like sort of doing the same thing. You know, I used to get frustrated when my coach, Mike Holmgren, would say, hey, we need to do less better. You know, and I'd be like, no, we could do this. We could run out and ups. We could run a flea flicker. We could run a hook and ladder. You know, like, and he's like, hey, you know what? Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to do less better. And I find like I'm doing all those things. I'm like, all right, guys, hey, listen, like let's walk before we can run. Hey, you know what? We don't need 90 plays. We need 9 plays that we can be really good at. You know, just like little things like that. And I sort of like chuckle. It's almost like this parenting moment where like you grew up as a kid and your parents told you to like, I don't know, whatever, eat your vegetables. And you're just like, oh, whatever, mom and dad. And then all of a sudden you have your own kids and you're like, hey, eat your vegetables. It's kind of like, well, I'm doing it, you know? But like, there's good and bad in that. Like you learn from good coaches, and I feel really fortunate. I had a lot of great coaches. And then also I think you learn from things that coaches did that it wasn't great. One example, accountability. You know, like you don't, I think people just kind of gloss over accountability, but and you know this, a very popular thing that happens in football is there's like a depth chart for coaches too. There's head coach, OC, position coaches, assistant position coaches. Sometimes a player will do something wrong. Let's just pretend it's a tight end. Tight end runs an out route. His position coach told him to run an out route. You know?
Oh, yeah.
You know? The head coach is like, or the OC or some, you know, superior is like, tight end, why'd you run an out route? You're not supposed to run an out route. You're supposed to run a post route. Run a post route. Tight end gets ripped. Tight end doesn't speak back. Just takes the berating in front of everybody. Now everyone thinks this tight end doesn't know what he's doing. Tight end gets back to his position coach, and the position coach does what? He whispers, "Hey, that's my fault. I told you to run the out route."
Yeah.
And like, as a player, there's something there that you just don't have a ton of respect for, you know? And, you know, like, so now I just think it's really important, like, be quick to take the blame, you know, not in a phony way, but like, that's on me. That's completely my fault. I was confused. I told him to run the out route. That's on me. It goes a long way. And I think that's just kind of like a nugget, like I'm fully aware of. My antenna's up because I've been a part of it and players respect it. But I feel like I'm just bragging on this guy, Andy Reid. But I just got to tell you, like, my rookie year, this is something I saw him do.
This guy, Andy Reid.
But listen, this is something I saw him do, and this is something he did to me. When something bad would happen in practice, the head coach, Mike Holmgren, you know how he is. He's very tough. He's like, the ball's not allowed to touch the ground in practice. Quarterbacks, what are you doing? Da, da, da. And Andy would get over and get in between us and get in my face and give me body language like he's berating me, but not yelling, but he's giving me body language, pointing his finger in my face and, you know, all up in my space, like get in my face. But he's saying something like this. Now, listen, I'm making it look like I'm yelling at you right now, but I know what happened. I saw that the receiver got 14 yards instead of 18 yards. We're going to see it on film as a staff, and we're going to realize this is not your fault. Now he's flailing both arms. This is not your fault, but I'm just trying to diffuse the situation. But don't worry about it, okay? Does it look like I'm mad? Look like, make your face look like you think I'm mad. Huh? Okay, all right, next play. And it's just like this amazing thing where it just brings the energy level and the confrontation level down in the room. And yet not giving up on accountability, because we are going to watch the film. Right. We are going to grade what happened. We will get to the bottom of it. But right now, I'm just being, I don't know what I'm being, a peacemaker in a sense. And yet now, like stuff like that, I would take a bullet for this man.
Right.
I would take a bullet for my position coach. Like I'll do anything he asks me to do because I know he's got my back. Yeah. And I know he's a team player and he's got a sense of humor. It's just like, it's just amazing. It's like that's like graduate level, like next level. But at the high school level, I think it's just really important to be quick to take the blame when it's your fault.
Yeah. I mean, you come back to Nashville and not just as an OC, you bring a lot of experience back here, but you also get to do it with your brother.
It's amazing.
And your father. Like, yeah. I mean, take us through that.
Yeah, so my brother Tim got named the head coach at Ensworth, which is one of the schools that my kids went to when I played here. So my brother's the head coach at Ensworth. My dad's like, hey, I want to come move to Nashville. I'm going to help.
I've also mentioned Lipscomb, so we're not, getting people to go one way or the other. So listen, I think we're pretty. So just in the NFL, like you move around a lot, right? You do well, you get promoted, you move. You do poorly, you get cut, you move. My son, our youngest, we're empty nesters now. Our youngest went to 10 different schools. He's now playing quarterback at UCLA, but like before that, he went to 10 different schools, and the whole time we're kind of like, oh shoot, are we screwing our kids up? We're moving around so much. What that developed was resiliency in them. Mm-hmm. But while we were here, our kids went to CPA. Our first year, we went to Ensworth. The second time, we went to Lipscomb the third time. And so like, I think we saw like no school is perfect. And it's kind of like, I think it helped in the college process. It's not so much about where you go. It's a lot more about who you are, wherever you go.
but yeah, so Tim had the opportunity, gets hired by Ensworth, and my dad's coaching tight ends. I'm the offense coordinator now. My nephew is the quarterback. So it's been great, and we're having fun, and we're winning, and like we're undefeated and all this kind of stuff. But like that's like a secondary goal.
Yeah.
The winning is cool because I think the kids are listening to us a little bit more on the character development piece of it, which is really why we do it. Like not all these kids are going to go play college football. Some are, but it's going to end for everyone at some point. It ended for you, it ended for me. And, but 100% of these kids are going to grow up to be adults, probably dads, have a job, understand what it's like to work for a good boss, maybe a bad boss, have a great coworker, have a bad coworker, how to be a good coworker, just like all the stuff. Maybe there's adversity that hits your family. Maybe it's cancer. Maybe it's a tragedy, like all this kind of stuff. And we've already in 7 games here, we've already been dealing with some of that stuff. So, I think like I'm stealing this line from an old teammate, but it's a football program disguised. It's a character development program disguised as a football program. And I think when we keep that first, that's I don't know. It's helpful to remind ourselves of that because you can't get caught up in the X's and O's.
Well, I think that's a reflection of you and your family. I mean, I've been around you guys for a very long time, and all you guys have that character from mom to dad. The brothers, wives. I mean, my favorite is still Sarah. She's, unbelievable. She's unbelievable. I mean, I remember when I bought your house, the first house.
That's right.
I bought.
First round pick, you bought it. So I was a late round pick. So like I went renter, finally saved up enough money to like buy like my dream house. And then like you come in as a rookie, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna buy your house.
No, like, okay, he's a salesman. He's a salesman, just like he was selling those plays. He was like, "Hey, I know you're from the South, and I know you like AC. Most homes in Seattle don't have AC.
That's true.
So we have AC. You should buy my home."
Honestly, homes in Seattle didn't have air conditioning. That's a real thing. But since you mentioned my wife, okay, so Mike McCarthy was my quarterback coach my second year in Green Bay, and he was just coming from coaching the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's guys like Joe Montana and Rich Gannon, like some of these guys, Elvis Gerbach, and some of the things, like he took me from like basically like, I don't know, like first grade to second grade as a backup quarterback. And he was like, hey, you got to master this playbook the way the starter does. Like, and I'm like, I'm trying. And he was like, we were newly married, and he was like, you need to get your wife involved. I was like, and my wife involved in learning the playbook? And he's like, yeah. He's like, let me tell you how Rich Gannon did it. His wife, at night, they'd get in bed, and instead of watching TV, she would, have the playbook, and like there's a coach to quarterback communication system. So like Mike Holmgren would call the play and like, 2 jet X dagger, watch shell across fake 40. And then like you as the quarterback would have to know the formation. Okay, it's double wing right, zebra return, 2 jet X dagger, wide shell across fake 40. So like my wife would quiz me. She would pretend to be Mike Holmgren, and she would be like, she'd just go through the playbook. She'd be like, all right, we got past 64, U corner, fullback flat. And I'd be like, oh, okay, Y motion to blue right, tight, close. She'd be like, good. And the next one, I'd be like, all right, 64 lead. I'd be like, I don't know that one. What is it? And she'd be like, Y motion to blue right, tight, close. I'm like, okay, and she'd highlight it. And like, it was for me as a quarterback and as a football player, like it took my game to like the next level. And the crazy thing is like in our relationship, it was amazing too, because I'd come home from a game. She'd be like, oh my gosh, what happened on that? I'd love to say touchdown, but you probably, what happened on that interception? I'd be like, oh, I forgot to call the Z short, And she's like, which play? The East right, Z short. If you're like,
she knew it.
Eagle arrow, East slice. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, you gotta
awesome.
remember that.
That's awesome.
But I don't know. So I'm not sure if Mike McCarthy, even to this day, knows like how much that helped me and really helped us. It's sort of hilarious, actually.
That's awesome. And now that you guys have amazing athletes, 3 kids, lacrosse at Boston College, two daughters, and now you got Henry he's at UCLA. I mean, take us through that and how Sarah's helped in you prepare them to kind of go on that journey?
Yeah, so my wife played field hockey. She's in the Boston College Hall of Fame for field hockey. My kids would point out she got into the BC Hall of Fame 16 years before I did, even though we're the same age. But I think my wife would tell you, and I would tell you that our sports chose us. Like I would have probably chose to be the next Larry Bird in basketball, but like basketball didn't choose me back the way football did. And so I think kids today, they specialize in a sport so early because like, oh, I'm the best sixth grader at whatever, or eighth grader or ninth grader. Like if I would have done that, I would have never played professional football. My wife never would have played field hockey. My girls both played lacrosse at Boston College. My oldest just graduated. She played in 4 national championships in 4 years. Won 2, lost 2. And like, I didn't even know what lacrosse was. Like she played AAU basketball like as long as she could. They played ice hockey, they played field hockey, they played everything. And we went to school, when I played for the Colts, we went to a school in Indiana where in the middle school, you had to play a sport like all the time. And like the sports were like, I want to say they played 6 sports or something like that. And so you played like co-ed soccer, then you did swimming, and then you did cross country, and like you did all these different sports. And it was just so great socially too, to see some of the girls that were like, I'm a queen bee in soccer and I'm the most popular girl in school and I'm pretty and everything's going well for me. And then all of a sudden, like we go to swimming and all of a sudden, like maybe a girl that's less on those things is all of a sudden like now she's the queen bee. And now the person who's like good at, soccer or whatever sport is now like, humbled a little bit. Like it teaches you how to be the number one team on the number one player on the team, and also maybe like maybe a bench player on the team, and just like that social dynamic, how to be a good teammate. So I'm a huge believer. My wife and I both are huge believers in not specializing in a sport. Stay alive. Let the sport choose you. And I know that's hard, especially because you're at war with like the club soccer people and like club hockey, and I know it's a challenge, but there's also strength in numbers there if parents just stick together.
Band together.
Yeah, pretty much. And then my other daughter, Mallory, like she's at Boston College now, a year younger than our oldest. And, again, like she's going on year 4 and they're planning on playing for another national championship. And this is literally a girl that thought she was going to be the next Sue Bird or she was going to win an Olympic gold in ice hockey, And so like, I mean, we did all those things. It wasn't like we half-hearted on the sports. We just did them all basically. Yeah. And it's not that hard on the kids. It's definitely hard on the Uber driver parents from activity to activity though.
But now you get to balance your life here in Nashville, back and forth to Boston, going out to UCLA to see Henry. And so, how are you guys balancing that with coaching high school football?
Empty nesting is not at all what I thought it would be. It's super different, but, I just think like one thing that I learned probably in the last 2 years is that, people say to me like, oh, you're coaching high school football, you're giving back to the kids. I'm getting just as much out of it.
Yeah.
The challenge of it and also paying it forward. But more importantly than that, I think the opportunity to be around other high school coaches who are really mostly high school teachers, strengthening and supporting and having their back, because the work that they do is incredible. Like I'm there after school. I coach the football team. I'm there in the weekend. I'm going to be there in the fall. Most of these teachers are there the whole school year, and they're going to be there for, 10 years, 20 years, the impact that they're going to have. I think about the impact that teachers and coaches had on me. So just having their back. Maybe it's just like they had a long day of school and I come in with like a new set of energy. Here we go, Or a coach is like on our team, like language is a thing. Like you are not going to talk on our team how you wouldn't talk in English class. Like you're not going to cuss. You're not like language is a thing. How you're going to talk to each other, that's a thing. And it's just easy. It's 2024. It's easy to kind of like, oh yeah, kids will be kids, boys will be boys. Like it gets exhausting as a teacher, I'm sure, to kind of like, you probably feel like you're picking your battles, kind of like a parent. And like now you have a group of people, it happens on our team happens to be like former NFL players. So like it helps a little, but like, like you're coming in and be like, no, not how we're going to do it. here's how we're going to do it. If this is how you're going to talk in the cafeteria, this is how you're going to talk here. Like, and just, I don't know, supporting the teachers, like having their back. We're not inventing new rules. We're just sort of like having their back on the rules that have existed for since the school existed, you know? So I think that almost might be the hidden thing that I think is more important. And I'm very, very grateful to be, you know, locking arms with the guys that are doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, you know, as you start to look at where you want to go, what you want to do with your life, I know you're a very passionate guy. Are there other charities and things that you're involved in that you also get passionate about, like you get passionate about coaching?
Yeah, no doubt. You know, and you know, what am I going to do next? Am I going to do this forever? I don't know. Like there was a saying that we'd always write on the whiteboard in quarterback rooms. It was just do everything right and the score will take care of itself. It's kind of a one play at a time mentality. No, so I kind of like, that's kind of how we're doing it. We're sort of all in on this, but I also struggle with saying no to things, you know? So like we have a game this Friday and then my wife and I are speaking at a thing in Arizona, this venture capital kind of get together for IJM, International Justice Mission in Arizona. I think we're on the stage for 10 minutes, like, you know, but we're doing it, you know what I mean? And so, and then the next weekend we're part of a big group that's hosting a huge thing for Charity Water, which is another group that, you know, we're involved in. One of the great things about being here in Nashville is I was the chairman of the board of Danita's Hope for Haiti, and I just stepped down. My wife stepped up, and she's on the board of that organization here that's based here in Franklin, Tennessee. She's on the board of like a bunch of different charities, Medical Teams International. Like there are so many great causes out there, and it's kind of like an all hands on deck situation. But I do think, like, kind of going back to do less better, there's a lesson for us in, I don't know, like learn to say no, because if you do say no, you're saying yes to something else. But yeah, that's a little bit of a work in progress, but we're definitely passionate about a lot of different things. We've been involved in these things for a long, long time. And, you know, I could speak for days on that, but it's, you know, I just remember when I first got into the NFL, all these players had like foundations. And so what did I do? When I became starting quarterback, I got a foundation. And I did a lot of charity work. I did a lot of charity work in college and then even in the NFL. And then I kind of had this realization, like the world doesn't need more like NFL player foundations. Like just support the great work that's out there. Yeah. It almost made me feel a little bit more nimble to evaluate. I don't want to say evaluate charities a little bit like investments. Like if we're giving money to something, I want to know that we're giving it to something that's using it well and stewarding it well. And so the kind of the charities that we've locked in on, those are the ones that we feel like, wow, you're really multiplying and doing a great job. And this is something I'm super proud of. And I would have no issue asking like my friends, be like, could you give to this? Because I'm so passionate about the work that they're doing, you know, locally, internationally, all of it. And so it's cool when you find those things and you are locked and you know this is the right thing. It's such a great feeling. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I've modeled myself out there, you know, watching you, and charity work has been one of those things that I've picked up on it really early of how you locked in on, you know, charity and not just having your own foundation, but actually figuring out what are the right charities that I want to be involved with, how to help support. So I appreciate that about you. And
can I just say something about like intangibles? Like this is like I hope I can tell this story quickly, but basically when I was with the Colts, I get invited to do trips all the time. I get invited to go with Charity Water to Africa to watch them drill wells for communities. And it was just horrible timing. I'm like 40 years old. I need every ounce of workout time and like stay healthy time to stay an NFL quarterback at that time. My kids were coming off of a 2-week spring break. It like made no sense to go on this trip. But I just had this like, my wife and I were just like, you know what? We always say no. We always say no. Like we should take, I don't know why, we should go. So we kind of hit the teachers up at the school. And we're like, hey, we're thinking about taking our kids out of school for the week after the 2-week break. And all the teachers pretty much were like, oh, they're going to miss homework. You better make up your homework. Like really gave us major attitude, which they probably were right. One teacher, she's probably the oldest teacher in the school. She was like, yeah, no problem, but do this. you have to make a movie on your trip and we're going to play it for the class. This is in Indiana. And so whatever, my oldest daughter, she does that. She makes this movie for the trip, and it was an amazing trip. Like, we saw what it was like for communities that had never had clean drinking water ever. And then we saw what it was like for people that were drilling and trying to get clean drinking water. Then we saw what it was like for people that had clean drinking water. It's an amazing experience. We did nothing to help them. All we did was like watch and learn. And it was an amazing experience, but I left feeling changed. And we go back. And I'm like, I got to do something. We got to do something. What can we do? Well, this teacher who has the daughter do the video, she watches the video with the class and is brought to tears. Okay. She runs down and meets with another teacher friend of hers who's the youngest teacher in the school. And she's like, we have to do something. Those two teachers, this young teacher and this old teacher, say, you know what? Our school, we need to have a week where we educate our kids in our school about what it's like to live in a world where you don't have clean drinking water. And we are going to raise money, and our kids are going to do it in middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. In that school, they did all kinds of stuff. They carried like waters. They turned off the drinking fountains. They shut off the bathrooms. They kept the one that was really far away open. They get people signed up to carry jerry cans of water like all around the school with their backpack. It was just like this amazing thing. Kids were selling bottles of water at sporting events for $20 a piece to parents, and people who at first were like, what? Get out of here with that. And there was like, no, here's why. And anyway, that school went on to build 2 clean drinking water wells in Ethiopia that'll go for, whatever, give clean drinking water for the next 20 years, all because this one teacher looked at a situation that she's probably dealt with time and time again and just said, I'm going to have a different answer to this one situation, and something changed. It was really nothing about us and anything we did. It was this one teacher who just like made such an impact, and the ripple effect from her, I don't know, creative way of solving a problem was just incredible. It was absolutely incredible. So that's awesome. I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
What an amazing story for that to kind of translate into something really great within that school. And think about the effect that it has on these other kids that had no idea, didn't have parents that was going on mission trips, things like that. And so
I was speaking at Boston College. My wife and I were speaking at Boston College recently, and a student from that who went to that middle school and high school came up to us and told us that story and what an impact it had on them back then. It just was like unbelievable. So
that's all
it's sometimes it's not even the thing that you think is making the difference. It's making the difference. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Matt, as we start to wrap up, one thing I like to do at the end here is ask you, what is one intangible that really sticks out to you that you've kind of carried throughout your journey? Or just being able to look back at an intangible that sticks out to you that you can hang your hat on.
I think body language, quarterbacks. When I was in the NFL, we talk about body language, okay? And then you'd sometimes sit in a defensive meeting room, and people talk about body language. I'm like, yeah, body language, okay? Well, then you sit in a defensive meeting room, and you hear the defensive coaches talk to their players. BBL, we want BBL. It was like, I don't want to say it was like my 5th or 6th year in the NFL. I'm like, what the heck does BBL mean? Bad body language. It was like the goal of the defense to get the quarterback to have bad body language. And like, I was like, wait a sec. When I found out it was their goal, that's when I was just like, oh, now body language matters to me. It's like, it shouldn't be that way, but that was true. So I don't know if that's like competitiveness or just like a light bulb. But I would also say it this way, like to quarterbacks, like do not be an energy vampire. Okay. Like do not suck the life out of, like bring energy wherever you go. And that can just be like a little bit of joy, a little bit of pep in your step and, whatever. And, like you and I both played for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll had 3 rules, and I didn't think I'd like Pete Carroll as a coach. I love Pete Carroll as a coach, but he had 3 rules, and his 3rd rule, when he first said it, was like so lame. I was like, it was be early. Yeah. I was like, be early. I'm like, dude, how lame is that? Like, duh, be early.
That's my job.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's so amazing because what I learned is it's a sign of respect for what's about to happen. And like, if you take that mindset and then all of a sudden you're there and you are like bringing energy to everywhere you go. Now all of a sudden I'm bringing energy to everywhere I go, and I'm being early for all things. It's just like different. I mean, even if it's a Zoom, like I just think it's very, very important. And in the context of Pete Carroll, it was, hey, quarterbacks, be early to a run game meeting. It shows that you respect what's about to happen in there, even though it's run game. Right. Receivers, be early to or running backs, be early to a pass game meeting. It's a sign of respect that you really care what's about to go on right there. And so I think those are like two real simple things that are like, like you can take that anywhere. And even, especially I would say, like parenting, like that's a major one. You can do that in parenting.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I love sports. There's so many lessons that we've learned and that carry over into all aspects of life, whether it's business, whether it's parenting your kid. I mean, I have a kid right now. We're having these exact same conversations about just bringing energy to your classroom of saying hello to your teacher when you just got out of bed, roll out of bed 5 minutes, rolling into school. Mm-hmm. Like, bring some energy to speak to people, and that takes you so much further in life than just moping around and not.
Yeah, and going back to like, I've almost made a game out of it with my kids. Like, you know, like I just going back to Brett Favre, you know, if the coach would, so in a huddle, like in the NFL, you know this, okay? You call a play, okay, we got, you know, whatever, green right, 93 blast, on one, ready, break. Okay, coaches hate when it's like that level of energy. Yeah. They love when it's like, all right, y'all, here we go. Green right, 93 blast, on one, ready, break. Like that's what they love. And they're just like, oh, it just changes the atmosphere in the room.
Yes.
And so like, I've almost made a joke out of handshakes with my son where it's like, I want your handshake to, can we shake hands? Yeah. I want your handshake to be like, nice to meet you. Like really squeezing eye contact. It's almost just like a joke. He's actually making fun of me when he shakes someone's hand in front of me.
But
but to the person, just like to the coach, to the person that like shake his hand, like, whoa, there's something different about this young man. You know? But he's really being like, haha, dad, you happy now? Yeah. You know, but it's like but it's almost just become what's normal. Yeah. And just, I don't know. It's kind of fun. You just gotta have fun with it, you know. It's all this stuff.
Later in life, when he, you know, if he decides to have kids, he's gonna be sharing that same thing, and he's gonna realize.
I think he already realized. So we do it also because like he's competitive. He's the youngest. Like you lose. This is a rule in our family because sometimes it's tears, right? You know, it was after any competition, you have to walk up to the person you just lost to, and this is what you have to do. Good game. With eye contact. It's just the greatest thing.
That's awesome.
But, you know, that's kind of just ripped from, you know, the coaches in the NFL being like, that's not good enough. Get back in the huddle. And me walking up into Brett Favre's huddle and be like, all right, y'all, we're going to show him. I want you to get a good break. And then I want us to sprint to the line of scrimmage. And it's almost this, like, you think you're being a rebel, you know, like, hey, we got 98 handoff solid on one, ready, break. And then you run up to the huddle. And like, yeah, we just showed them. And the parents, the coaches are sitting back there like, thank you. Was that so hard? Appreciate it. But it's all because, I mean, I call it an intangible a little bit. Like you're bringing energy in your own creative way to a situation that would have been in like an energy vampire suck. Like, oh man, you know, everyone's yelling at each other here. It's no fun. You know, we just made it fun and somehow found a solution where like literally everybody is satisfied.
Yeah. I mean, this has been amazing, man. I mean, you've brought back so many memories and, you know, giving me chills just hearing how you got to this leadership standpoint, because I have always respected you as a leader and as a person who can connect with a lot of different people. And now I actually know the why behind it. And I'm pretty
well, we shared a lot of huddles together, and you're a great leader too, Chris. And everyone's got a different leadership style. And one of the things I'm saying to the guys that I'm coaching right now is like, we've got a lot of quiet kids on our team, and that does not mean that you can't be an incredible leader. It's not about words. It's actually sometimes about not words. You know. So I appreciate you as well.
Yeah. Hey man, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Can we end on this?
Yes.
Enjoyed it.